guys, welcome back to another episode of the One Tree Hill Rewatch here on the Filmaholic channel. Today we'll be talking about two episodes in Season 6 of One Tree Hill, and that's 619 and 620, so let's jump right into it. 619 is called Letting Go, and it originally aired March 30th, 2009, was directed by the great Paul Johansson, and written by David Hendelman. The main things about this episode, so we're really in the part of the season now of Season 6 that isn't my favorite part of the season by any means. It's probably my least favorite part of the season. The next few episodes, this one I still enjoy because it's got Julian in there. This is his last episode until 23, so there's like the next three episodes after this, especially for me, are kind of slow. I mean, that's me personally though, and the characters that I care most about is Dan. I don't know, like, as we get into this stretch too, I think it's worth pointing out that Lucas and Peyton really don't have that big of storylines anymore. At this point, when they're writing the show, they know that they're not coming back. They're not bringing Lucas and Peyton back next season. So really, and by the time you get through after 18, which is the last episode that I talked about, which, other than the stupid dog thing, is a really good episode, and there's a lot that happens in that episode, and the writing's good, and the acting's good. But after that, Lucas and Peyton really, the only thing they have left is the wedding and the baby, which is like a joint storyline that they bounce back and forth off of, and I don't think they ever, like, obviously there's not much else to tell with them, and I think actually they could have told a little bit more with both of those characters and gave us a little bit more other than just saying, well, they're not going to be in the next season, so we're not going to give them that much. For example, I would have liked to have seen Lucas start working on another book. We only saw him write the 2 books. The movie thing didn't work out. By the time we get to the end of the series, they still don't mention that he ever wrote another book, so I'm not really sure what they're doing with money after this. And that's something that I'll talk about again when we're talking about the 7th season, and kind of explaining why Peyton gave up Red Bedroom Records and all of that. So the main thing about this episode is Jamie's trying to deal with the fact that Dan killed Keith and him finding out about it, and that he never really got to know Keith, and trying to get to talk about Keith to him. Nathan doesn't really know what to say because Nathan didn't have a good relationship with Keith. So he talks to Lucas about it, and Lucas, Nathan, and Jamie all go to Keith's old body shop, which is owned by someone else now. Obviously, Dan got it after Keith did, and when Dan sold the dealership, I'm sure he sold that as well, and that's what happened. But for some reason, Lucas has a key, which I think is kind of crazy that the owner would give Lucas a key, but whatever. Lucas has a key. He takes Jamie there with Nathan, and they spend the day together hanging out, which all of that I actually really liked. The fact that they had Jamie dress up as Keith was a bit too much for me, but you have all of that stuff, which ultimately ends with a really good scene, I think, at the end of the episode, where Jamie says, he wished he got to know Keith, and then he asks Lucas, well, first he apologizes for Dan. He says he's sorry that Dan did that, but then he asks Lucas, is it okay for him to still miss Dan? And Lucas says yes, which I love that so much. It's probably one of my favorite Lucas's moments in season 6, because this is the Lucas that should always be there, and the Lucas that Keith raised is to tell Jamie something like that, versus the Lucas that's in the graveyard in 609 and beats the shit out of Dan's grave. Stone. But that's the main part of this episode. The other main thing is the Julian situation, where Julian, even though we had a scene in the last episode where they essentially broke up and he was leaving, he's still in this episode, and he wants Brooke and Sam to come with him to LA and live. Which, let's talk about this right off the bat. It makes no sense why Brooke wouldn't do this. She doesn't have much keeping her in Tree Hill. She doesn't have her company at any point in this part of the season. She has Karen's Cafe, that store that's just empty. You can do that anywhere. You can definitely start your new clothing line in LA, and it's going to be easier for you to start it out there. And you have this guy that you want to be with, and he's going back out there. No matter what anyone ever tells you, there's so much more opportunity for a kid in California, especially Los Angeles, than it is in somewhere like Tree Hill. So the whole Sam trying to hide, and it's her trying to hide behind the Sam situation, and Sam knows that. But it makes no sense why Brooke wouldn't take Julian's offer and go with him to Los Angeles. But honestly, they had to write something and make something up because they can't have her leave and go to Los Angeles because she's got to stay on the show. But you have that stuff going on. You also have the stuff with Skills and Mouth in this episode. They go on a road trip. Skills takes Mouth to see Gigi at a college party, and then ultimately takes him to see Millicent, and they get back together. Hooray. And then you also have the stuff in here with Haley and her students. Finally, this is the end of that awful arc. Haley's quit by this point, but the students still want to come to her house and get a lesson from her. They do, and the principal gets upset about it, which by the end of the episode, the principal tries to offer her to come back, and Haley's like, I would never, pretty much no. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice what I believe in just, for you, and it's not going to work out for me coming back and working under you. So, no. So that arc ends, and that's the beginning of the end. Well, that really is the end of us seeing Tree Hill High in a regular format. Because we obviously the high school years, and then season 5, Haley and Lucas were working there, and season 6, Haley's still working there. After that, they don't really use Tree Hill High anymore. When we get to season 7, it's used in a few episodes, so I'm assuming they still kept the set in the same location, the same sound stage. Since they had that set up all those years, they might have still kept it in season 7 in that same spot, the sound stage that was closer to the front that I went on the tour and saw, because they use it. I think they use it in like episode 11, and 12, and 15 of season 7. So they use it for 3 episodes, and then after that they don't use it again until season 9, and that's when Julian has a show, which I was in that part with the extra, and that wasn't in the same area. They rebuilt that hallway and everything, that set, in a different sound stage than the one they had it set up with originally. So yeah, pretty much the end of Tree Hill High, at least for the most part in this episode. Yeah, but that's a lot of the stuff that's going on in 619. Then we get to 620, which is called I Would For You. And this episode originally aired April 20th, 2009. So there was like a month-long hiatus between that episode and this episode, which is really strange to me that 619 would be the 3/4, I guess you say, season finale. 618 would have been a much better episode to go on a hiatus after. Just for the stuff that happened in the episode, and it was a lot of concluding arcs. And 619 really should have been that episode that came back after the mid-season hiatus, but they didn't do that. 620 was the episode they came back with, and it was directed by Peter B. Kozlowski and written by Brian Gracia and Chris Armstrong, who has a cameo in the episode as well as the guy in the junkyard when they're looking at Peyton's car, which brings us into the biggest thing about this episode, and that's that Peyton gets in a car crash. It's not a big cliffhanger or anything. They didn't. That's another thing where I'm surprised they didn't use this as the end of an episode, but they use it towards the beginning. It's not even the first scene. They have a couple of scenes and they show it. She's talking to me on the phone. She's listening to Mia's new song that's on the radio, and then a car, when she goes to the intersection, a car hits her, destroys the Comet, and sends Peyton to the hospital. Where then Lucas meets up with Brooke and finally tells Brooke the situation that they're in with the baby. And Peyton's fine. She comes home from the hospital, but she does have to stay in the bed for like the next 3 episodes, it feels like. I think it's 2021 and 22 that she doesn't go anywhere. All of her scenes are at Lucas's house, which makes sense for the storyline, but also like these are the last episodes that you have with Peyton, and you stuck her in one set the whole time. And now yes, we have the flashbacks in the next episode, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, I feel like, once again, so much more you could have done with Peyton, so many stuff that you could have set up with her in Red Bedroom. You could have brought Larry back, give some final stuff with her and her dad, her real brother. There's just so much other stuff that I would like to have seen explored with Peyton. We never get to see Jake again. Bring Jake back. Obviously she's with Lucas, but have something where she's getting some storyline for herself, other than just being in this house. So she's in the car accident that happens. It's also Jack's last episode, thankfully. I'm not a fan of that character. He gets sent to a foster home in Charlotte, which is really good for him. The parents are awesome, but it's a sad moment for Sam, which ties into the next thing, is that it's Victoria's welcome back episode. She hasn't been in the show since, I believe, 604. Brooke left the company. It was Victoria's. She's out of the picture. Victoria comes back in this episode because the company is in trouble, and she needs Brooke to come back as a designer. Brooke doesn't want to do it. She's like, you lost the daughter, you lost me. I'm not coming back to your company. But then Victoria knows that it'll upset Brooke if she brings up the fact that, hey, what about all the people that work for you? What about all these people? You're not going to help with them? So Brooke ends up coming back for 51% of the company. So that happens, and Victoria and Sam start talking to each other too, and that little seed of their relationship is planted there for the next few episodes. There's also, the last thing I want to talk about in this episode is Naley considering sending Jamie to that other really smart school, private school, which honestly, you want your kid to always get the best education, but this was never even something that I think they were ever going to consider, like, realistically on the show, because Jamie loves basketball. His dad is a professional basketball player, and he loves basketball, and he wants, as of right now, to play basketball. And the school doesn't offer that. So, honestly, that's so out of the question. I mean, the kid that's his dream, and you have that at a regular school, and you don't have it here. Why would you ever consider even sending him somewhere that didn't have what he wanted to do? But that's episode 20. And, the next episode will be 21 and 22 that I do. We'll talk about that. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time.